The press up, one of the most commonly used exercises, but also the most commonly done wrong ones. We've got a few bad press ups to show you now. So we've got dirty dog, bum up in the air, elbows bend a little bit, but not much else going on there. Okay. We've got the wingman where the elbows flare out to the sides. Pretty bad on the shoulders, this one. Next up, we've got the pecker. Head bobs down, not much else moving other than the neck and the head, okay? We've also got the worm. Hips drop to the floor, roll up through that lower back. That doesn't look good, does it? Final one, okay, we've got the humper. This is pretty much the worm, but a little bit faster. Now, as you can see, those may look similar to a press up, but they use very little of the muscles that we want to engage and actually use for that exercise. We're going to show you how to do it properly and a couple of progressions that you can do if you can't do a press up, how you can actually get to a full press up. So the press up is a pretty tough movement to do on its own, and most people feel like they can't start with a full press up, as we call it, which we'll show you later. There's a couple of regressions that we want to do first to get up to that full press up. So if you're someone who struggles with doing this movement, start very easily at first. It might feel really easy and actually like you're not doing much, but what we're going to do is going to use a bench here, but you can use a sofa, maybe a worktop at the side of your kitchen, okay? You can be standing to do this, but we're going to do it on the knees to the bench. And now as you see that, we've taken a lot of weight off by putting the knees on the floor. Josh has got his hands outside shoulder width on the bench, and he's getting his chest in toward the hands there. But he's also keeping a nice flat back. The hips and core are moving at the same time as the shoulders, and he's pressing up and away, keeping the neck nice and neutral as well. He's not arching and looking up to the ceiling. He's keeping his eye line looking over the top of the bench. And that is a pretty good press up to start with. So if you're someone who struggles with doing any press ups, even on your knees, and you've related to some of the bad push ups we put at the beginning of this video, then start simply with that supported press up there. All we do next up to regress that, if that feels really easy, and you can do sets of 8 to 10 reps very easily, now all you do is just move yourself back away from that. We still have the knees on the floor, hands shoulder width. This time again, we're going to engage the core, the midsection, tense up through the lats, the back, everything that we've shared, okay, on multiple videos about keeping that core tension. Chest goes over the hands, and as you see, everything moves up in line in one continuous movement. Now that is obviously the press up on the knees. What we see firstly though is when people do that, they sometimes drop back to some of those bad push-ups where nothing else, you see the hips are pretty static, the shoulders, the elbows are flaring there, or the worm comes into play where they drop that lower back and actually the hips lag behind. So be aware of some of those errors that could be made if you do these on your knees. Now, if you're someone who can do those on your knees very easily, 8 to 10 reps say is a bit of a target to get to. Next up, we make that a little bit harder by putting a stretch into the chest at the bottom of the movement. Now, this is called the hand release push-up, and it's knees down, hand release push-up. We're going to all the way to the floor, take the hands away, and then press from there. That is actually a very deep position to press from. It makes it a little bit harder. Yes, you're getting a rest on the floor, but everything else comes into play in terms of the line between the knees, the hips, the shoulders, everything stays straight. However, you're now pressing up from a stretched position, a relaxed position almost, and then having to put that tension on to make that rep. If you're someone who can do that, brilliant. That is a pretty tough one to do, and especially with that control that Josh showed us there. Now it's time to take the knees away from the floor and actually try an attempt a full push-up. Now, as we said before, everything stays the same. However, this time you can see now the knees aren't on the floor. The line has got to be from the ankles through the knees, the hips, the shoulders, and the neck, and all else stays the same. Hands are going to be chest or outside shoulder width, okay? So the chest is going to go over the hands, as you can see there. Josh's eye line is down to the floor there. He's not looking up to the ceiling, or at least in front of him. He's keeping a nice neutral neck as well. And as you see, those push-ups there are pretty perfect. So if you're someone who can do that, all we're going to do now is add the hand release to the full push-up. Again, this is that stretch across the chest at the bottom, but here, the reason this is very tough to do is that the hips have got to come up at exactly the same time. So you've almost got to brace the abs, engage first, and feel like you're lifting the hips up before you even start pressing. Otherwise, it'll turn into the worm and they'll lag behind, even just slightly. That's where you lose that core tension, okay? So you've got to really engage first and almost bring the hips up before you even start pressing. So with some of the progressions and regressions of the movements, okay, that we've worked through on these push-ups, now we're going to try and show you 4 different versions, okay? Basically, all that's going to change is the hand position. Here we've got our standard normal press up, which is just outside shoulder width with the hands, okay? This is engaging the good chest, shoulder, and full arm lock out at the top there as well. So what we're going to go through now is widen the hands a little bit, This puts a little bit less range, obviously, because his arms are wider, it's closer to the floor, but it does give a good stretch across the chest and shoulders in this. Okay, still got that lock out the triceps at the top. Okay, this is still going to be involving the arms, but I get a nice stretch on the chest. Everything else applies in terms of chest and shoulders over the hands. Okay, but still the hand placement is different. Next up, we're going to go for the tricep push-up, which is elbows tucking in nice and tight to the body, hands almost just inside shoulder width now, and this is a bit more emphasis on especially the fronts of the shoulders, but also the triceps, because they are going to be pushing up for the full range. To get obviously hands closer, it's going to be a little bit of a longer range rep. If we go even closer with the hands now, so a close arm push-up, you might have to even widen the feet to get the balance because it's quite tough. This not only puts the emphasis on the triceps there, but at the top, Josh is almost squeezing the chest together, so it's quite a tough exercise for the pecs as well as the triceps. And obviously that's a long range of movement because the hands are the closest there. You've got that full, all the way up, all the way down through that range. So there are just 4 variations that you can do for a push-up in terms of the hand position, going from standard, either wider, or moving it into the closer to make the emphasis slightly different on each type of exercise.